Alan Kelly was with us during the campaign each week as we talked about the plays being made. Alan's founder and CEO of Playmaker Systems, the makers, if you will, of the first periodic table of politics and the new strategy app, if you haven't seen it yet, Playcaller. He's also adjunct professor at GW, Grad School of Political Management, teaches a course on political strategy and simulation, and joins us. Alan, great to have you back. Thanks for being here this morning.
Good to hear your voice again, Tim. Hi.
I am looking at the plays, and you are, like everyone else, first of all, you've got something there on Susan Rice with wild rice. We've had fried rice, we've had boiled rice, now we got wild rice. But I want to focus, if we could, right now on the fiscal cliff, because this is the one that has most of the players involved. I mean, we've got Republicans and Democrats. We've got Speaker John Boehner yesterday and the Secretary of the Treasury, Tim Geithner. Speaker Boehner on Fox, Secretary Geithner on just about all the channels. And it sounds like they've got their talking points in a row. Give us your overall take of the plays being run here as Democrats and Republicans are trying to figure out a way to make the most of whatever they're trying to do between now and January 1 when this fiscal cliff hits.
Well, they are following a rather predictable pattern of negotiation and of influence, whereby they move from one of three modes, from assessing to conditioning to engaging. So over time, we would expect, and particularly as we get very close to December 31st, we'll expect them to be very much toward the engaging side of the spectrum. But immediately, right after the election, they came out of the blocks, and they were assessing. They were running plays that we call passes and pauses and maybe deflects, and it really was amounted to gunslingers standing there with their itchy trigger fingers and waiting for the other guy to move first. It was like speed cyclists in the Olympics, if you follow that, waiting for the other guy to make the break. And now, over this last week, with Obama coming out with his very draconian, we're going to tax the rich proposal, we're beginning to see some movement here that's more mid-spectrum, more in the area of conditioning. And so that's what we're going to see here over the next few weeks.
Well, when we saw John Boehner, the Speaker of the House, right after the election, go before reporters and say, we saw the election and we're waiting for the president to lead. We're ready for the president to lead. What was that? Was that a pass? Was that a deflect? What was that?
It's a good question. It was probably a challenge play, what we generally call a preempt, a pressing play where he is, he's saying, come on, we can do it. But you might also consider it a bait. I mean, maybe to Boehner, he might be challenging the president or the Democrats to do something good. I think from the Democratic perspective, they probably felt like he was baiting him. And that's why those two particular plays are so close together, because they're very, very related, and it depends on perspective.
Now, specifically the other day, Senator Mitch McConnell went out on the floor of the Senate, and he slammed the president. He's actually did it a couple of times last week. He slammed the president for continuing the campaign. What kind of a play was that?
I think it was a preempt, and specifically it was the play that the name of which we've laughed about over through the campaign, called the Trump. And I don't mean the Donald, and I mean as in bridge, where you're throwing down a card to try to reverse competitive position of a particular match or contest. And what McConnell is simply hoping to do is to try to remove from the Obama apparatus one of his most important weapons, and that is his mandate, his ostensible mandate, however you might rate it. McConnell's trying to say, hey, stop campaigning, man. Well, that's one of the things that is going to give Obama strength, and he's in the bully pulpit, and he's not going to give that up. But McConnell wants to try. From
an overall sense, or really more the 30,000-foot view perspective on this, Alan Kelly, what is the level of engagement? I mean, when we talk about the election, the campaign, Americans were very much paying attention to this. I mean, it was a key election. You have to decide who's going to be the president, who's going to be able to impart his vision onto the country for the next 4 years. The decision has been made, and it's now into the holiday season. Thanksgiving to New Year's, I've always thought of as, when I was programming radio stations, was kind of, if not the dead zone, it was surely a great challenge, because people are so focused on their personal lives right now, gift giving, holiday parties, taking care of the family, etc. So how much are these plays working or being noticed? Are they just being run because they have to be run, and that's the nature of the beast?
great question. The politicians are not shy at all about using the airwaves and the media cycles to make this an issue. That they don't seem to either they don't care or it's part of their calculus that they want to make this an issue, and they're willing for this to be very, very big in the mind of voters or general citizens. I think the one thing that is interesting here is that one of the real power players, at least one of them, Grover Norquist, is really sort of serving as a proxy or some sort of surrogate to Republican parties. But it's almost as though senators, congressmen of the GOP side are actually proxies to him. And so in a way, you sort of got a decision-maker confusion here. You could easily argue that it's Norquist that Geithner, for instance, ought to be arguing with or debating with directly and trying to make change at that level. He's in the corner and having a great deal of effect. And so that's one of the aspects of this game I find very, very intriguing is our surrogates and who is a surrogate to whom. We saw this during the election.
Well, and who is the Republican Party? Who is the voice of the face of the Republican Party? It's clearly not Mitt Romney because he has disappeared, and I don't think Republicans actually want him to be the face of the party. Speaker Boehner is kind of de facto because it is the House of Representatives that's going to be the power here. Mitch McConnell, for all his barbs that he throws at the president, doesn't have as much power to change things because the Senate is run by the Democrats, and of course the president speaks as one for the administration. So really, I guess it is John Boehner. I want to get to something, though, that you were writing about, specifically the FUD factor, F-U-D, which you say the December game of chicken will be the message-making of FUD. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. How does that play out?
Well, it's a popular phrase. Most people know it, and it's this, the sowing of the seeds of crisis. And I think we'll see two particular plays on this, this spectrum of plays that we've outlined here in our Playmakers table. One is called the screen, and one is called the ping. And you have to have a name for these things. And the screen is a strategy of association where a player is trying to glue themselves to something more meaningful than them or what they are. And a ping is a little bit like it, but it's a much more subtle reference. It's like Alan Greenspan saying irrational exuberance in a 4,300-word speech. It's a much more subtle thing. But so we already are seeing, I think Lindsey Graham has been the great FUD maker, saying we are already going over the cliff. He's predestining it, and those are pings that he's running. The very suggestive plays that make people worry, that make people wring their hands, and set the game pieces in a way that he hopes are advantage to the GOP.
You know what I think is one last point. I think what is really fascinating about this is that we have, during the election, there is a clear goal: get elected. Or in the case of the president, get reelected. In this case, I don't know that we have a clear goal. The idea is to avert the fiscal cliff, but we don't have a clear goal. Is it just to raise taxes on people who make over a certain amount of money or raise taxes on that income level? Is it to reform things? Is it to move to another day? I'm not really sure what the overall goal is, and maybe it's different for Republicans and Democrats.
Well, I don't know. Just as a voter and a professor and just a guy out there watching this, I feel like sometimes seems to me that the goal is just to be the guy, be the winner.
To get elected. Again, and again.
But it feels like the goal of Democrats is that finally we're going to beat Republicans. Republicans say we're going to beat Democrats, or we're going to hold the line. There won't be new taxes, or we will make them, cross the line. And it seems like a contest of just simply a contest of egos on a simple referendum.
Yeah, I think you've sort of summarized what America's thinking about it right now. Of course, Alan Kelly, CEO, founder, Playmaker Systems. At Playmaker Alan is where he tweets, ALAN. As always, great to have you, Alan. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tim.